Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's on tap in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. It's a Belmont Stakes edition presented by Naira Bets. Of course, we're going to talk about the third jewel in racing's Triple Crown, the Belmont Stakes, covering it from many angles. Jay Privman will discuss the post position draw. Nicole Russo will discuss bloodlines. Jonathan Kinchin will talk about the Belmont in the context of a pick four wager. And Craig Milkowski from Timeform US will spotlight the pace projector. Our in-studio handicappers, Matt Bernier, Mike Beer, and I will also discuss some of the major races on the undercard. The Grade 1 Metropolitan Handicap, the Ogden Phipps featuring Champion Songbird, and a good edition of the Manhattan Handicap on the turf. We'll also give you our best bets on the Saturday card at beautiful Belmont Park. Let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate presented by Naira Bets with our hot topic. No hotter topic in racing than the Belmont Stakes. Let's take a look at this field. Remember, for expanded stakes previews, head on over to video.drf.com. We cover all of the graded stakes races at Belmont in great depth. The Belmont is your formulator race of the day. Head on over to the Race of the Day event page on drf.com and download free formulator past performances. The Belmont, gentlemen, as we bring in Matt Bernier, Mike Beer, is in a state of chaos. The favorite Classic Empire was withdrawn on Wednesday due to an injury. And now Epikaris, the intriguing invader for Japan, Mike, he was treated for lameness Thursday morning.
Right, and all this came on the heels of the Derby winner declining, the Preakness winner declining, the undefeated Peter Pan winner, which is supposed to be a prep for the Belmont. Why would he run in this race? I don't know. There's a lot going on here. You don't get the best horses in the division, unfortunately, but it doesn't mean it's not an interesting betting race, I guess. Maybe
we don't have truly the most talented three-year-olds. Remember, Mastery could be the best of them all, and he was injured after winning, I believe it was the San Felipe. But it does become an intriguing betting race. Matt, let's take a look at Epikaris running second in the UAE Derby. I say winning because turning into the stretch, it looks like he always has Thunder Snow's measure all the way down until about 50 yards out, and then somehow he lost the race. Listen, even before this lameness, foot problem, whatever you want to call it, it was going to be a tough task for him to win, no matter how talented he seems.
Yeah, 100%. And you see right now, Thunder Snow's thrown a little bit of a fit. Something kind of spooked him, and he still comes and beats Epikaris. And I can understand anyone that looks at it and says, boy, you're supposed to win that race, all things considered. I know he set a pretty reasonable pace out there, but it just, I want to see you get the job done. And now coming into it, he would have been interesting, but still at a shorter price, I was going to try to fade him a little bit. Now, maybe he's only got 3 good legs at this point. He's just not an interesting horse right now.
That race was in the end of March. He went back to Japan. He's shipped to Belmont. The best horse he's beaten is arguably Adorato, who is certainly not a grade 1 caliber horse. He's more of a sprinter or a miler. Mike, where does he fit in this race now with the injury at a relatively short price?
I mean, I guess we'll find out. The injury, I guess, is the real thing that is a little bit of a put off this close to the race. I still think he's probably an interesting horse in this race, if only because the stateside 3-year-olds, and especially the ones who are contending the Belmont Stakes on Saturday, they're just not that good. So I feel like he has a reasonable chance to beat them, but he's got to be healthy.
Irish Warcry is the morning line favorite, winner of the Wood Memorial. Matt, we know he has fast races. As we take a look at the Wood Memorial, he has a couple of triple-digit buyers on his resume. He's maddeningly inconsistent.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to get from him. The good Irish Warcry could obviously win the Belmont. You see here in the Wood, he's had a perfect trip, all things considered, and he went on with it. But we've also seen the bad Irish Warcry, and if the bad Irish Warcry shows up Saturday, he's as likely to run last as he is to win. So I don't know what you're going to get out of him. He's the ultimate in and outer right now. I'm not going to fault anyone that says he's just better than everyone else. I'm also not going to fault anyone that says I'm not going to touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Mike, what are we going to get out of Irish Warcry? He was traveling so sweetly for the first mile of the Kentucky Derby. Yes, he lost ground around both turns, but it looked like he was going to run a big race. He flattened out badly in the stretch.
Yeah, he really stopped running that race. I mean, listen, that was a Derby. I feel like the inside was probably a little bit better place to be that day, and he was never near it, but that was a pretty disappointing performance. He's a pretty talented horse. I guess he's just not for me, guys. He's just one of those horses I feel like I can look at as 2 major wins so far on his card, the 2 graded stakes wins with the 101 buyers, and just I feel like those races are a little dressed up. As far as win betting goes in the Belmont Stakes, he's not for me.
Okay, we're going to look for a price then in a race like this where the favorites have so many question marks. Matt, we'll begin with you. You're going for a big price, but great connections.
It's mainly because of everything Mike and Dan, you had laid out, that I don't like anyone else in here, particularly the shorter prices. So Twisted Tom, down on the inside, Javier Castellano, Chad Brown. This is a horse most recently, Federico Tessio. It may not look visually spectacular, but you keep in mind, this is him being a little bit more forward in the running, and O Dionysus, who, okay, he's no great shakes, but it looks like he's going to take his measure at any point. And Twisted Tom, when he gets back onto the straight, he lengthens and he gets away from this horse. 2 starts back, he did something similar. He was outpaced on the turns, but he really runs well on the straights, and I can only hope, I know he's really slow on paper, I can only hope that the 12 furlongs plays to his advantage. Javier gets him into the running early on, and then you know what, you get into the straights. If this thing turns into a war of attrition, I'll take my shot with a big price.
Mike, you're also going with a horse that's double digits on the morning line. Trainer Brendan Walsh is having a career year. You like Multiplier.
Yeah, I guess I would just rather have one of the more unknown horses in the race so far. I mean, this horse maybe isn't all the way unknown. He did run in the Preakness Stakes, and I thought he ran fine in that race. Catching a little bit of traffic, got a little bit tight in the stretch, but I thought he ran fine overall. I just like his races, and I feel like he doesn't have to be way off the pace. He won't be near it, but he won't be last either. If he can get himself into range, I think he'll stay on in the stretch. I think he'll see out the distance, and I just think there's still more upside with this horse.
Before the injury, I liked Epicaris. I've been crowing about him on my blog, drf.com/blogs, for about 8 months now. With the injury, all of the other question marks, factor in the short price. It's just a bit of an underlay for me. I agree with Mike. I like Multiplier. He's going to be my top selection in this race. Getting a little bit of an equipment change, maybe he can be somewhat closer to the pace. We're going to look at his run in the Illinois Derby. This was his race 2 starts back. Mike mentioned he had a little bit of traffic in the Preakness. You see, he's in behind horses here. It's a very long stretch at Hawthorne, and although this horse on the face of it doesn't seem like he's truly bred to be a stout horse, he seems like he wants every inch of this distance, and he comes and collars this favorite who looks like he's home free inside the last 16th of a mile. He is now paired up by tops in his last 2 races, and I'm hoping with the equipment change, another forward move is in the works for Multiplier, who should be a good price in the Belmont Stakes. Lots of other Grade 1 stakes action at Belmont on Saturday. We're going to look at the prestigious Metropolitan Handicap next. One of the most prestigious races in the country is on the Belmont Stakes undercard. It is the Grade 1 $1.2 million Metropolitan Handicap. Let's take a look at this field. We've got a big field. Unfortunately, one of the favorites, Connect, was injured earlier in the week. A couple weeks ago, he's out of the Met Mile. Imperative, another contender, also out. But Mike, this looks like a very strong field and more spirit from the Bob Baffert barn. Looks like he's found himself.
Yeah, he's come back pretty good as a 4-year-old this year. I mean, he was fine as a 3-year-old, but he's come back a better horse this year. It's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what he does in here, because he shows up with some pretty big figures on the way in. I guess he's the horse to beat. On the other hand, they've found some pretty soft spots for this horse. I think it's going to be a little tougher for him on Saturday.
Matt Moore Spirit was a Grade 1 stakes winner as a 2-year-old. He was on the Kentucky Derby trail for a while at 3, Grade 1 placed. A bit of a lazy horse, though, it seemed, as a younger horse. He's come back off a long layoff for Bob Baffert. He's run some fast races, including his most recent performance, the Steve Sexton Mile, a race basically where he controlled it from start to finish.
And I guess that's kind of the thing that you've got to make a call on. You know, he got out there and he had things, I want to say, you know, easy, relatively easy. And I know the fractions, if you want to take a look at Timeform US pace ratings, were on the red side, but boy, he's in a really tough spot Saturday afternoon, where arguably the horse that he's going to have to run down is just simply faster than he is, and if he stays too close, you fear, is that going to cook his goose and set it up for somebody coming from off the pace?
Remember, for expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races at Belmont Park on Saturday, head on over to video.drf.com, Timeform US pace projectors. We talk about every horse. Mike Moore Spirit's very logical. He's going to take a lot of money in this race. You're looking for a price horse. You like Denman's Call a little bit. bit.
Yeah, I think More Spirit's a favorite worth trying to beat on Saturday. I do like Denman's call. I like the way this horse has come back off of a relatively long layoff this year. The first 3 starts back, I thought were all really good performances, including the Grade 1 win in the Triple Bend, where, you know, he beat Masochistic. Now, Masochistic is who he is. He's a fast horse. You know, he doesn't always want to get into a fight with you. But Denman's call didn't luck into this win against Masochistic. He went after a fast horse on the lead early, and he dueled him for a long way, and he got the best of it. And I thought he was much the best in this race while earning a competitive figure, at least a figure that will make him competitive in this Met Mile. And he came back, they shipped him over to run on the Churchill undercard, the Derby undercard at Churchill on a wet track. I think that race might be a little better than it looks, guys. I mean, he didn't break well from the gate that day. He actually made a sustained run to get into contention, and he flattened out a bit at the end. I thought he ran fine. Fast track on Saturday, I think, helps this horse. Will be a little bit away from the pace that could get pretty fast. I think he's a contender in here at a price.
Matt, you're hoping that pace makes the race. Sharp as Tekka on paper, on figures, doesn't need a lot of advantages, but he could be on the lead and on a fairly lonely one.
Guys, I might be vastly overrating this horse. I think it could be showtime on Saturday. He is arguably the controlling speed, and you know what? His most recent start in the Godolphin Mile, not nearly as bad as it may seem on paper, the fact that he was beaten by a couple of horses locally over in Dubai. He was out there setting blistering fractions. All the other horses that were pressing the pace with him, they finished up the track, and he just got a little bit short at the end. His run 2 back in the Gulfstream Park Handicap, tremendous effort. Went out there and put on an absolute show. And it's also worth noting, a couple of the main sort of competitors in this year's Met Mile, he's dusting right now in this spot. You've got Awesome Slew, you've got Tommy Macho in there. I just think Sharp as Tekka is way the horse to beat in here, and it's not going to surprise me if he wins by open lengths. Again, maybe I'm overestimating him, but I think he's got a giant chance to put on a show.
And in his race in Dubai, he ran a big race. He probably didn't deserve to lose, or he was battling it out through some extremely fast fractions, made the lead into the stretch after putting away those other pace rivals, and he paid the price late. I think Sharp as Tekka is going to control this race from the start, and he's going to be very tough to reel in the stretch. Sharp as Tekka is my selection as well in the Metropolitan Handicap. Nicole Russo has got some intriguing angles for the Belmont Stakes. It's the test of the champion. It's a 1.5-mile race on the dirt. We don't see too many of those in North America. If it comes down to a stamina contest, Nicole's got all of the horses that she believes has the bloodlines to handle this additional distance. Jay Pribben talks about post positions and how important they are as it pertains to this year's Belmont Stakes. Let's go to those pieces right now.
Hey guys, Nicole Russo here with some pedigree analysis of the Belmont Stakes for Out of the Gate. The Belmont, of course, is the last and longest of the American Classics. It's likely to be the only time that these horses ever go this 1.5 miles. Certainly a good horse can outrun their pedigree, but of the 3 Triple Crown races, I think this is the one where pedigree really matters the most, especially in that final quarter mile. In recent history, there have been a couple of sire lines that have really had success in the Belmont, and both are well represented Saturday. Both of these sire lines were illustrated a decade ago in the Belmont when 2 champions dueled to the line. The filly Rags to Riches, who had won the Kentucky Oaks 5 weeks prior, edging out Preakness winner Curlin, who went on to be a 2-time Horse of the Year. Rags to Riches represents one of the most influential stamina lines around today, while Curlin has gone on to be a prominent classic sire in his own right. Rags to Riches is a daughter of 1992 Belmont winner AP Indy. Of course, he went on to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, be named Horse of the Year, and become a profoundly influential sire. His good sons at stud, who have been stamina influences also for the most part, include Malibu Moon, sire of Derby winner Orb, Mineshaft, Bernardini. AP Indy is also the grandsire of Tappet, North America's reigning leading sire. AP Indy's line has produced 3 Belmont winners in the last decade, with the stallion's daughter Rags to Riches, plus 2 sons of Tappet winning the race in the last 3 years. Tappet's represented in the Belmont field this Saturday, along with several other representatives from AP Indy's line. And taking a look at this year's Belmont's entrance, you've got Gormley, who's by Malibu Moon. Of course, the sire line is only half. Gormley also has a strong stamina foundation from his female family. In my opinion, he's one of the horses best equipped to handle this 1.5 mile marathon. J-Boy's Echo is by Mineshaft, while Senior Investment, who is 3rd in the Preakness, by Mineshaft's son, Discreetly Mine, who was a sprinter, sort of an anomaly for this line. Taprit is looking to become the third Belmont winner for Tappet, while you also see Tappet's son Tapizar, winner of the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, more of a middle-distance horse, represented by a first-crop starter in Hollywood Handsome. Now, meanwhile, Curlin, by the late leading sire Smart Strike, has gone on to produce a classic winner or classic placed runner from each of his first 4 crops to race, with a big impact on the Belmont in particular. He had 2013 Belmont winner Palace Malice in his first crop. 2 years later, Keen Ice finished third behind Triple Crown winner American Pharoah and the very good Frosted in the Belmont. Keen Ice, of course, came back to win the Traverse at 1.25 miles over American Pharoah. Curlin, also the sire of Preakness winner Exaggerator, who was second in the Derby. Preakness runner-up Ride on Curlin. He's just been a really classic, influential sire early in his stud career. And this year's entrance, Curlin is the sire of the Belmont Morning Line favorite in Irish War Cry, the Wood Memorial winner who was 10th in the Derby. Also in this Belmont field, Lookin' at Lee is by another accomplished son of Smart Strike in Preakness winner and 2-time Eclipse champion Lookin' at Lucky. Lookin' at Lee, who was second in the Derby and 4th in the Preakness, will be the only horse to contest all 3 legs of this year's Triple Crown. So those are the sire lines that you might want to start with in handicapping Saturday's Belmont Stakes, which is really sort of a puzzle this year, a 12-horse field. And next up on Out of the Gate, let's take a look at how the contenders drew in the starting gate and how that might impact the race.
Hi everybody, Jay Privman, the national correspondent with Daily Racing Form here at Rockefeller Center, where they just drew the field for the Belmont Stakes. Only 12 to run. Originally there were going to be 13, but as you undoubtedly must know by now, Classic Empire, who would have been the favorite in the race, is out with a foot abscess in his right front. 12 others are in this race. The only horse in this race who will run in all 3 Triple Crown races is Lookin' at Lee, and I've got a story on the statistical facts about that situation on drf.com. As for the draw, Irish War Cry will now be the favorite on the morning lines of both Mike Watchmaker of Daily Racing Form Eric Donovan of the New York Racing Association. He, of course, ran in the Kentucky Derby last time out and finished 10th, skipped the Preakness, and now will run in the Belmont. There are 5 horses in this race that are doing that same situation, and that's what won last year for Creator, and it's actually what's happened with 8 of the last 17 winners of the Belmont Stakes. They ran in the Derby, skipped the Preakness, and are now running in the Belmont Stakes. One of the interesting things I thought about this draw was that Patch got the outside post. Now, I don't think posts are going to matter a whole lot in the Belmont Stakes with only 12 horses. It's a full lap around the 1.5 miles of Belmont Park, but Patch got the outside post in the Kentucky Derby as well, which was a 20-horse field. He's outside in 12 here. The odds of that happening, getting the outside post in these races, is 240 to 1. He'll be a little shorter price in the race on Saturday. Stay tuned here at drf.com. There'll be much more videos for you to see related to the Belmont Stakes and plenty of copy generated from all of us out at Belmont Park.
Make NyraBets your home for online horse racing and betting. Use NyraBets to bet on live horse racing from around the world. Bet from anywhere, anytime using your computer or mobile device. Earn valuable reward points on bets. Play in our exclusive promotions and earn cash rebates. Sign up at NyraBets.com and start earning your sign-up bonus today. NyraBets, racing's best play. Sign up to NyraBets and get a $200 bonus. NyraBets, racing's best play.
You asked, we listened. DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRF TV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate, presented by NyraBets. One of the most eagerly anticipated Grade 1 races on the Belmont Stakes undercard is the Ogden Phipps for fillies and mares. Let's take a look at this field because this race marks the return of Songbird. And Mike Beer, she's a champion, tough to lose an undefeated record the way she did last time out in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. But boy, she's going to take a lot of beating on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, listen, she's a short price off a layoff. You always got to be a little concerned about that stuff. But I mean, there's some good other fillies or mares in this race, but she just towers over this field on speed figures. She looks as loose on the lead as she wants to be in here. Pretty tough combination, though, for some of these other horses to overcome.
Let's go back to the Breeders' Cup Distaff of last year. She brought her undefeated streak in. You see her down towards the inside. She was controlling the pace throughout, and it took a pretty nice one to run her down. A future Hall of Famer, in fact, in Beholder. And what? She got beat a half a nose?
I was going to say, I mean, she loses nothing in defeat other than the perfect record. I mean, you could make the case. I know she was out there on a pretty cushy lead, all things considered, but she dug in. She didn't want to lose this race. First time she was ever really in a fight, and I think it just bodes very well. She's in that sort of rare position where she's probably going to work out the best trip. She's going to need to regress and have some of these other fillies take a step forward. If she's going to lose in this spot, she's just the epitome of a horse that I have zero interest in trying to beat.
She is 1-2 on the morning line, Mike Beer. You don't play horses like that at short odds. How do you maximize value on your top pick in the race, Songbird?
Well, I guess what you do really is, or at least the way that I'm going to approach it, is the Belmont starting this card off with a guaranteed $500,000 pick 5. Songbird is the last leg of the pick 5. I suspect many people will be singling her in the pick 5. I'll probably do the same and try and get alive to it.
Matt, I have a feeling you're going to utilize a similar strategy, short price. You know, she's going to be probably a single on most people's pick 5 tickets. Is that the way you're doing it?
Yeah, it's exactly the way. And I suppose if you wanted to play the race individually, maybe you just key her on top and you try to look for a little bit of a price to run second in an exacta. But I'm looking to do the same thing, Mike, is there's a guaranteed pick 3, a $250,000 pick 3. It starts off in race number 3. I plan on just singling Songbird and everything.
For expanded stakes previews, head over to video.drf.com. We cover all of the graded stakes races at Belmont Park on Saturday in great depth, including the Ogden Phipps. I want to talk about one of the contenders in this race. Mike mentioned that you always have to worry a little bit about short-priced favorites coming off of long layoffs. Bar of Gold is a mare that Songbird's going to have to defeat. And let's take a look at Bar of Gold's most recent start. You see her on the outside, and Joel Rosario was riding her very confidently, to say the least. He broke well with her, he rated her back, he came on the outside, and the horse that's going to beat her is also in the Ogden Phipps. Down towards the inside is Highway Star. Highway Star really wants to fight you, and I wonder if Rosario was a little bit more aggressive, that this photo finish could have been closer. Now, this race was contested over a sloppy track that Bar of Gold absolutely likes, and it's unlikely that she's going to get that sort of situation against a true superstar of our sport and Songbird. But my pick of Bar of Gold in this race is sort of like, I kind of think she might be the most likely horse to run second behind Songbird. Maybe that's the way to maximize from a single race standpoint. I think Bar of Gold is going to run well. She's obviously going to have a lot of things go her way if she's going to upset Songbird in the Ogden Phipps. The Manhattan Stakes on turf might be a little bit more of a better betting race. That's coming up next. Some of the top turf horses in the country will be in action in the Grade 1 Manhattan Stakes on the Belmont undercard. Let's take a look at this field. For expanded stakes previews, head on over to video.drf.com. We extensively cover all graded stakes races on the Saturday Belmont card. Gentlemen, the morning line favorite in this race is the number 3 World Approval for Mark Casse and Julian Leparoux, and this horse, Matt, has been very, very good this year.
You know, it's always nice to see a horse that you just get to see the progression from a maturity standpoint, where you saw as a 3-year-old he's a little bit goofy. Last year as a 4-year-old, slowly putting it together, and then this year his 2 starts have both been awesome, particularly the one most recently down at Pimlico. I don't have anything to knock against this horse other than maybe 1.25 miles is pushing it, but you take a look at him right now, he's in full flight, and acknowledging this is a little bit of a weaker field in this race down at Pimlico than he'll face Saturday at Belmont, but he destroys this field.
Mike, you'd argue that he's one of the horses to beat because he has wonderful tactical speed. He can adapt to any kind of pace scenario.
Yeah, he can get the right trip in any race that he runs in. I think he will be up close to the pace in here, and I agree with Matt. He's just come back so strong this year as a 5-year-old. I like the campaign he put together last year, but it seems like he's taken another step forward. Right trip coming this race. I think he'll get the 1.25 miles. I mean, I like him going shorter, but he'll get the 1.25 miles too. He might just be the horse to beat here.
Matt, he's the morning line favorite, but there's a possibility that time test for Chad Brown, with his big reputation, could end up the chalk. What price do you need to bet your top pick World Approval to win?
Probably in that 3-to-1 range, maybe a little bit higher, just simply because, you know, this is a much tougher field than what he's faced in either of his first 2 starts in 2017. But again, that tactical speed, particularly in a race where it doesn't look like there's a ton of early gas. I think that goes a long way. So 3-1, 7-2, I think that's fair.
Mike, we've all been impressed with the late kick of Sadler's Joy. Now, this is a horse that really looked good towards the end of last year, albeit against weaker competition, but he's been stepped up by trainer Tommy Albertrani, and he's passed the test with flying colors.
Yeah, it's almost like you could see him heading this way from the end of last year. As you put it, he started getting good. They stepped him up down at Gulfstream into a couple of graded stakes races. I mean, he ran really well in those races, including the win in the Pan Am 2 starts back where he came from last. I mean, he's still at the back of the pack here as they already turn into the stretch. And Julian Leparoux's just going to take him out to the clear. And this horse, this is what he does in every one of his races. He just kicks really hard at the end, and he will close this field down late. I think he's going to come running late in this race, too. It's a tougher test for him. He's facing some much better horses. I think he's up for it. He's a fair price in this race, and I think this is a race that he can win.
And let's discuss his most recent start, because he was in a difficult situation from a ground standpoint as well as a trip perspective.
Yeah, I don't think the ground really worked to his favor. And, you know, just when they walk on the lead like that, I mean, they really went slow up on the pace in that race. That doesn't suit this horse. And, of course, being in behind horses in the stretch didn't help him either. I think that race is probably just one that you want to be very forgiving of. Let's just say that.
Chad Brown might have the favorite in here with time tests, but I'm going to go with one of his other runners, and that's the extremely consistent Beach Patrol, who might end up on or near the lead in this year's Manhattan. Let's go back to Beach Patrol's Turf Classic at Churchill Downs. Divisadero, we're going to see, he's going to end up winning this race on the outside, but Beach Patrol is basically on the pace throughout, and he's going to dig in and run an excellent second, and that's Beach Patrol. He's going to fight you all the way to the wire. When you look at his races, you're going to see a lot of minor awards, and that can be a little bit disappointing if you want to bet him at 4-1 or 5-1, but this horse might have a tactical advantage over Divisadero in this spot, and I think Beach Patrol is going to give his usual hard-hitting effort. He's going to be in a prime position when the field turns into the stretch. 5-1 seems like a nice price on Beach Patrol. Let's go to our Timeform U.S. Spotlight. Craig Milkowski is going to talk about the pace projector for the Belmont Stakes, and then Jonathan Kinchin has a pick 4 play at Belmont Park.
Today we're going to talk about the pace projector for the Belmont Stakes. As you can see, we got a big field. There's quite a few horses in here that have speed. We have 4 of them labeled as leaders or speed or trackers. And so therefore the Timeform US pace projector thinks the pace is going to be fast for this race. One thing to keep in mind, it is a longer race at 12 furlongs. It's the longest grade 1 we have on dirt in the U.S. So jockeys do play a little bit bigger role. So, you know, it's always not, it's ideal to maybe use your own insights as well, but the pace projector will give you a good starting point. The first horse I want to talk about is Irish Warcry. He's the one shown on the lead. And I think that's probably where he is going to end up. He's a horse who's shown high speed in his last 3 races. He rated a little bit off the pace in the wood and was able to win, but his other 2 have been brutal trips where he's been caught wide through fast fractions. Today he's drawn inside the other main speed, who we'll get to in a second meantime, and I think he probably will lead this race early. Meantime is the next one. As you can see, he's led in both of his route races early. Clear, easy leads. The one difference between him and Irish Warcry is he just hasn't gone as fast as that one has. If the jockey really is, you know, wants the lead and goes hard, he could probably get it in here, but either one of these 2 should lead. I'd be surprised if it's anyone else. The horse shown third in the pace projector is Gormley. He's a horse who I would be surprised if he's actually up that close during the running of the race. The pace projector looks at the last 4 or 5 races each horse has run, and in his case, he's kind of changed running styles. Before the Santa Anita Derby, his trainer John Sheriff said that he was going to be taken off the pace, and he was, and he won that day. So expect him to probably be a little further back. If there's one horse who could challenge, who's shown a little further back in the pace projector, it's probably Twisted Tom. He's a horse that showed pretty big speed last time out in his longest race yet at 1 1/8 miles. You can see the pace figures he ran are in red, showing it was a fast pace for the race, and he ran as fast as 1:33 early. So if he's really pushed, he also could be one that's up there. If the fast pace does develop as projected, I kind of look at the Timeform US late pace ratings as a guide. And the top 5 are Looking at Lee, Hollywood Handsome, Senior Investment, J-Boy's Echo, and Multiplier. But the most interesting is Looking at Lee. He has a pretty big gap of 8 points over the others. And not only that, he's shown the most overall ability. He ran second in the Kentucky Derby. He ran 4th in the Preakness after a little bit of a tough break at a shorter distance. He's one that the longer distance should be right up his alley. We do have breeder ratings in Timeform US, and his route rating is much higher than his sprint rating on dirt, so I think he's one that's going to enjoy it. J-Boy's Echo is one who's run some big races from off the pace. He had a tough trip in the Withers, rating behind a slow pace before winning the Gotham pretty easily from well off. He's had some couple of clunkers. They were bad trips, but he didn't do much running at all. But if one of them could rebound from off the pace other than Looking at Lee, he's the one that I might expect to find in the winner's circle. So given the pace projector and the overall ability of the horses, the one I'm going to go with on top is Looking at Lee. I think he's going to get a good setup. I think he's going to enjoy the distance. And one thing people tend to forget is that at a race this long, the horses tend to spread out quite a bit. A lot of horses pack it in early. So even though the field's a little on the bigger side, traffic shouldn't be an issue for the closers late. I do think Irish War Cry is going to make the lead, and he's going to be the one he has to run down in the lane. So he's my second choice. And then a couple of long shots, I think J-Boy's Echo, as I said, if he rebounded to his best form, could certainly contend. And Twisted Tom's another. He's definitely a new shooter to the Triple Crown Trail, but he did show some surprising early speed last time, ran a nice figure, and he's one on the improve. That's it for Timeform US today. We'll send it now to Jonathan in his Kinchin's Corner.
Hey everybody, welcome to Kinchin's Corner. Thanks for coming back this week. Belmont Stakes weekend, Belmont Racing Festival, 3 great days of racing. You'll probably be seeing this after Thursday, so hopefully you enjoyed your Thursday. Friday and Saturday should be a lot of fun. I'm going to focus on the late pick 4 ending in the Belmont Stakes on Saturday. The first race is the Grade 1 Longines Just a Game. Look, this is a spot where I have an opinion of a price horse that I like, but there's just too many other talented fillies in here. I'm pretty much going to use the all button except for one, which is a move that other horse players might cringe at. I'm going to use everyone except for Prize Exhibit, shipping out from the West Coast for Jim Cassidy. I just don't think she's good enough versus these horses. Dickinson, Roca Rojo, Harmonize, Celestine, Sassy Little Lila, and Antone. Or Antono, are the ones that I'm going to be using. My focus is going to be on Harmonize, though. The inside of the turf course for Derby and Oaks wasn't that most ideal place to be. She was down there the entire time. I expect her to run much better off of that performance. However, I'm going to use all except for one in the Just a Game. Moving on to the Met Mile, one of the most exciting races that we have in North America. I love Sharp Azteca in this spot. I think that horse has shown its ability to kind of sprint and extend his sprints into the one-turn variety of one-turn miles, and I think that he'll run really well in this spot. I respect more spirit for Bob Baffert. I still think that he's probably going to excel more at the Grade 2, Grade 3 level, but I definitely respect him in this big race. And then I'm going to use Solid Wager, who is outside on what we've talked about as being a really inside favoring track Derby and Oaks weekend. He was on the outside that day closing and made a nice little run, and Peter Miller has shown on the West Coast that he can win these types of races, and I would expect that Solid Wager will run better than his odds will indicate. And I'm going to use both Paul Pompa horses for Todd Pletcher, the 2 Rally Cry, and the 11 Tommy Macho as B horses. Moving on to the Manhattan. There's 2 horses I'm going to use, and they're coming out of the same race at Churchill Downs on Derby Day. A lot of people think that pace was actually faster than it looked on paper. Some of the weather that came right before the race. If that's the case, Beach Patrol ran huge down the inside. If it's not the case and the pace was slow, Devisidero ran huge. Those are the only 2 for me. I'm going to use Beach Patrol and Devisidero as A horses, and probably press up Devisidero a little bit more. For those that listen to the podcast know I have a little bit of a love affair with that horse. And then on to the Belmont Stakes. Classic Empire Scratch kind of changed the makeup of this race quite a bit. I'm going to use Tappert as my top choice as an A horse. I'm going to use Irish War Cry off of that wide trip in the Derby. Tappert also had a wide trip, ran well. And I'm going to use Epicurus, the Japanese horse that we've seen plenty of stories about. Some good, some bad. But they've been pointing to this race, and I think that we can expect Epic Harris to run well. So a little bit bigger budget than we normally do. We got a $200 budget. We're going to go with $1 all A ticket, 50-cent A with 1B, and then 50-cent A with 2B for a total of $174. You can trim that down a little bit or get some partners to hop on the ticket. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate, presented by Naira Bets. It's best bet time. Matt, you're off the short layoff. Who do you like?
I got to get back on the beam here. Race number 2, the Easy Goer. It's going to start off all the stakes action Saturday at Belmont Park. I like You're to Blame for Chad and Javier. This is a horse. Each of his past 2 starts, he's been compromised by inside favoring racetracks. He's come widest and fastest of all in both of those races, the Pat Day Mile as well as the Bay Shore. There's plenty of pace in the Easy Goer. That's not going to be the excuse. I'm hopeful they take him back, make that one run, the pace comes apart, and he gets the job done. You're to blame in the Easy Goer.
Mike, you had a 3-week best bet streak snapped last week at a good price by 2 dirty noses. You're against a short-priced favorite with your best bet.
Yeah, we'll see. I want to look at another one of the Grade 1 races on the Belmont undercard. The Acorn is race number 4. Abel Tasman just won the Kentucky Oaks. She will be the favorite in this race. She's the horse to beat, but I'm not thrilled with her. Second choice is Sweet Loretta for Pletcher. I'm not thrilled with her. I'm going to try and beat the 2 favorites with number 6, Tequilita. This is a filly who is getting the turn back that she needs here. Last 2 starts, around 2 turns. I just don't think 2-turn routing is her game. She wants to go shorter around 1 turn. She gets it here. This is a race so she can sit up close to the pace, maybe get first run on the closers and get the job done at a price.
I'm going to go with Hoagie in the Jaipur. My best bet got beat by a nose last week in a turf sprint. I'll stick with the turf sprint. Hoagie is a very consistent horse, a hard hitter. He usually is around, and this is a horse that was favored over several of the runners he'll be facing in the Jaipur in his most recent start, the Shakertown Stakes at Keeneland. And as we pick up the Shakertown, as the field swings into the stretch, you're going to notice the top 2 finishers in this race basically saved ground. And Hoagie had to come 4-5 wide swinging into the stretch. It looked like he was in with a big chance here, but he flattened out just a bit in the late stages. He has a good tactical gear. He can adapt to any kind of pace scenario, and his connections are very strong. He was with Scott Becker. Now he's going to be trained by Larry Ravelli, who's clicking at about 30%. Hoagie's going to be facing a tough field in the Jaipur, but the price is going to be right. He is 8-1 on the morning line. That's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.